I'm Dr. Jenny, and I'm really thrilled to be your guide on today's deep dive.
And I'm Dr. Brian.
What if real freedom, especially later in life, it doesn't come from adding more things, but actually from letting go?
Today, we're diving into something really fascinating. We're taking a close look at some of the habits, the beliefs, maybe those silent burdens that, well, a lot of us carry for way too long.
Absolutely. So today, our mission really is to unpack 8 powerful things you might want to consider stopping after 70. And look, this isn't about giving up at all. It's actually about growing into the most, authentic, peaceful version of yourself. These aren't just random tips either. They're reflections grounded in real life, a bit of deep psychology, and just the lived wisdom of so many older adults. You might even find one or two really speak directly to something you've been kind of quietly battling with inside.
Okay, let's jump right into the first one. Letting go of pleasing everyone. This has got to be one of the most emotionally exhausting things you can keep doing in your 70s, trying to keep absolutely everyone happy.
Right.
And this pattern, it often starts much, much earlier in life, doesn't it? Saying yes just to keep the peace, or agreeing to avoid any conflict, subtly editing ourselves maybe to fit what we think others expect. It gets so ingrained we barely notice the cost.
Yeah.
But really, at this stage of life, you don't owe anyone your silence or your time or your energy if it's really costing you your own peace. And what's fascinating psychologically is the trap underneath that. It's often this really deep-seated fear of disappointing others. It might come from a really generous place, but, when that need to please constantly overrides your own needs, well, that becomes a kind of slow self-abandonment.
Self-abandonment. That's a strong way to put it.
It is. And we often inhabit these long-standing roles, maybe the caregiver or the fixer. They feel like our core identity, right? But they're roles. They aren't necessarily your true self. Letting go doesn't mean you lose who you are. It actually means shedding what just doesn't serve you anymore. That fear of being left out or maybe unloved, it's real. But honestly, genuine connections, the really good ones, they're strong enough for healthy boundaries. They often get deeper.
That distinction, roles versus identity, that's really powerful. It makes me think of Linda. She was 76. For decades, literally decades, she hosted these big Sunday family dinners, cooked for 12 people every single week, felt this huge sense of obligation, but also she was just deeply tired.
I can imagine.
So one day she just told her family, look, I need a break. She was incredibly nervous about it, worried they'd stop coming completely.
Understandable fear.
But guess what? They didn't. Her daughter actually stepped up and started hosting. Her grandson even started bringing dessert. The connection didn't vanish. It evolved. And Linda, she got her Sunday afternoons back just for herself.
That's a great story. It shows how things can adapt.
Exactly. So as the practical takeaway here for you listening is maybe this. If you find yourself constantly trying to meet everyone else's needs, just pause. Ask yourself, is this something I really want to do? Or is it something I feel I have to do? If that feeling is heavy, like a weight, that's your cue. Letting go of people-pleasing, it's not selfish. It's really about self-respect. And we genuinely love to hear from you on this. Have you found some freedom in setting boundaries? What's maybe one experience where letting go of that people-pleasing habit really made a difference in your life? Let us know in the comments. Oh, and if you're finding this deep dive valuable, please do subscribe and maybe share it with someone you think might benefit from this wisdom too.
Oh.
Okay, so moving from what we perhaps owe others, it's really worth thinking about what we owe ourselves, especially when our bodies start, speaking a bit more urgently.
Precisely. And this leads to the second point. One of the most common and frankly potentially dangerous habits people carry into their 70s is ignoring or just brushing off what their body is trying to tell them. A little bit of unexplained dizziness, maybe some unexpected shortness of breath, or that nagging pain that just won't quit.
Yeah.
So many people dismiss these things. Oh, it's nothing serious, or I'm just getting old.
Right, the classic excuses.
But the thing is, after 70, your body isn't just whispering anymore. It's often sending pretty urgent signals.
Yeah.
And ignoring them. That could be a really costly mistake.
It's so true. I mean, many of us, we grew up with that tough it out mentality, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
We were sort of taught, don't complain, just push through the discomfort. And maybe when we were younger, that sometimes worked. Our bodies bounce back quicker. But as we age, the rules, they really do change fundamentally. Recovery takes longer, the risks increase, and what might have been a minor issue can, spiral pretty quickly into something major if you don't address it.
And the big psychological barrier here is often just fear. Fear of getting a difficult diagnosis, maybe a fear of hospitals, or even that subtle fear of losing your independence.
Yeah, that last one's huge.
It is. But ironically, it's exactly this avoidance, this not acknowledging the signs, that often speeds up the loss of that very independence you're trying to protect. When you listen proactively, when you seek help early, you actually gain more options, more time, and honestly, significantly better chances of preserving your health, your mobility, your overall quality of life. Catching things early really can change everything.
I remember this story about Robert, 79. He was a retired mechanic. For weeks, he kept dismissing this recurring chest tightness. He just started avoiding stairs, compensating.
Classic avoidance.
Then one day, his daughter noticed he was breathless just getting out of a chair, and she insisted, "Dad, you need to see a doctor." Turns out it was early-stage heart failure. But, and this is the key part, because they caught it early, the treatment was incredibly effective. Within months, he was back doing his morning walks, but with this newfound appreciation for his body's messages.
That's a powerful example. So it raises a really important question for you to consider. Are you truly listening to your body's signals? Pushing symptoms aside isn't strength, it's actually gambling with your well-being. Your body isn't trying to annoy you, it's trying to protect you. Listening to it, that isn't weakness. It's profound self-wisdom.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because some of the heaviest burdens we carry, well, they aren't physical at all.
Right.
So, moving from the physical, let's delve into a different kind of burden. One that often weighs us down without showing up on any, medical chart. If there's one silent weight that so many older adults carry, it's the unspoken pain of old grudges.
Yes.
Maybe it's a sibling you haven't spoken to in years, right? Or a friend who betrayed you decades ago, or even just lingering resentment from relationships long past. These are the kinds of emotional wounds that, they're invisible, but they can profoundly impact your health, your sleep, your just overall sense of peace.
And the profound truth here, it really bears repeating, is that holding on to that anger, that resentment, it doesn't really punish the other person. It mainly punishes you.
Right. You're the one carrying it.
Exactly. You're the one carrying the tension. You're replaying the moments in your head, and you're inadvertently robbing yourself of the peace that could be yours, right now. Psychologically, grudges can give us this false sense of control. The idea that I won't let go until they admit they were wrong.
Puts the power in their hands.
Totally. It puts your emotional freedom entirely in their hands. And the reality is that apology, it might never come. So forgiveness, in this context, it's not about forgetting what happened or even condoning it. It's a deliberate choice. You choose to reclaim your energy from something that's stealing from your present. It's a really powerful gift you give back to yourself.
That idea, reclaiming your energy, that's so vital. It reminds me of Harold. He was 82, hadn't spoken to his brother in over 30 years. Some old family dispute. They lived miles apart, raised their families, just never reconciled.
30 years is a long time.
It is. Then, after a minor stroke, while Harold was recovering, he told his daughter about this deep regret he had. So she reached out to her uncle. And a week later, these two brothers, they met. Apparently, there were tears, long silences, but then eventually, real laughter. They couldn't get back the 30 years, obviously.
And it was not.
But they found this profound peace in the time they had left together.
That's incredibly moving. And if we zoom out a bit, connect this to the bigger picture, peace just becomes less of a luxury and more of a necessity as we age, doesn't it?
It really does.
Letting go of that old pain, it's truly one of the kindest and maybe paradoxically, one of the strongest things you can possibly do for yourself.
But what about the excuses we tell ourselves about learning and growth? This next one might surprise you.
Right, let's talk about that because there's this quiet lie, isn't there? It just kind of infiltrates many minds as we get older. It's the belief that learning, that's only for the young, or that after 70, your brain just isn't as sharp, or maybe it's simply too late to adapt to new things.
Yeah, that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Exactly. And that saying is not just outdated, it's actively harmful. Because the moment you truly start to believe you can no longer grow, well, you inadvertently begin shrinking your own world.
That's such a powerful point because our brains absolutely do not stop learning after a certain age. That's just not true. In fact, modern neuroscience, it confirms the brain stays remarkably capable of forming new connections, new pathways well into our 80s and beyond. It's called neuroplasticity.
That's right.
And here's the really surprising thing. Actively engaging your brain, challenging it with new learning, it doesn't just keep it busy, it can actually build up what they call a cognitive reserve, which helps buffer against age-related decline.
Yeah.
It's like muscles, isn't it? Your brain thrives on exercise.
It really does.
So when you tell yourself, I'm too old to learn that, you're not just closing a door, you're kind of locking it from the inside. You're denying yourself these incredible chances for continued vitality.
And the core issue, often, is that we confuse temporary discomfort with actual incapacity, especially when we're tackling something new, like technology, maybe.
Oh, yeah, tech frustration is real.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It can feel frustrating, maybe requires asking for help, which, for independent people can be really challenging. But struggling doesn't mean you're broken. It just means you're stretching those cognitive muscles. And that stretching, that's exactly how we stay mentally agile, how we stay engaged, and how we maintain our independence as we get older. Plus, there's a really powerful emotional piece here, too. Learning something new sends this vital message to yourself that you're still in motion, that life hasn't passed you by, that you still matter in this vibrant world.
I think of Eleanor. She was 75, never touched a computer in her life. Her grandson offered to teach her email how to find family photos online. She resisted at first, convinced it was too complicated, too modern for her.
Heard that before.
Right. But she eventually gave in. And within a month, honestly, she was sending cheerful little notes, searching for her favorite old songs, even watching knitting tutorials on YouTube. Her face would just light up when she talked about it. It wasn't even about mastering the technology, really. It was about rediscovering that profound joy of learning something new.
That's fantastic. So letting go of this limiting belief, it doesn't just open up new knowledge. It really ignites confidence. It can spark creativity, deepen connections. It powerfully tells your mind, hey, I'm still alive, I'm still evolving, and there's still so much more for me to experience.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of raises an important question, doesn't it? What new thing have you been putting off learning, maybe dismissing it with that I'm too old thought?
Yeah, great question. And if these insights are hitting home for you, please let us know. Leave a comment, maybe share something new you're considering learning. We'd love to hear it. And please don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Dive and share this with others who might appreciate this perspective. It's time to confront another sneaky habit that steals our present joy. Okay, so we've talked internal blocks. Now let's talk about something else. A habit that quietly steals joy from the now. It's this crucial point in life where we really need to stop waiting for the perfect time to enjoy what we already have.
The someday syndrome.
Exactly, that habit of deferring joy. Oh, I'll use the good china when we have special guests. Or I'll wear that beautiful dress for a really special occasion. Maybe you've been putting off a trip or even just, enjoying a quiet candlelit meal by yourself because you're saving it all for some vague someday that just never quite seems to arrive.
So common.
But really, after 70, that time to wait, it's over. Someday needs to be today.
And this habit, it often has really deep psychological roots, doesn't it? Many of us, maybe we grew up during harder times, economic struggles, or just where sacrifice was necessary.
Right, conservation was key.
Exactly. It fostered this habit of conservation, of prudence. And while those were strengths then, if that same instinct to delay gratification isn't checked, it can kind of morph into what some psychologists call deferred happiness syndrome. We almost condition ourselves to believe that pleasure has to be earned, or that our own comfort can always wait.
Yeah, always comes second.
Right. And the irony is, those perfect conditions we wait for, they rarely show up. So when you habitually postpone joy, it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It keeps real living at arm's length.
It's fascinating how deep that runs. I remember Frank, 81, he had this amazing collection of wines, beautiful stuff. For years, he kept saying, oh, I'm saving them for the right moment. Year after year, those bottles just sat there.
Waiting for that perfect moment.
Exactly. Then, after a bit of a health scare, nothing major, but it shook him. His daughter visited and just asked him straight, Dad, what moment are you actually waiting for? So that night, they opened one of his best bottles. Nothing extraordinary happened externally, just laughter, stories, connection. But that simple evening became a moment worth remembering. And Frank, he never waited again.
Good for Frank. Sometimes it takes a nudge.
It does. So the liberating realization here for you listening is maybe this. Joy doesn't need to be justified. It doesn't need to be earned. You don't need some grand excuse to use the nice things you own or to take that walk just because the sun's out. These aren't indulgences. They're actually essential for your well-being. When you let go of someday, you shift your view of happiness. Presence itself becomes the reward. Just embrace today. This next point hits close to home for many of us, and it's a silent battle that robs us of our present worth.
Yeah, this is a big one. It's one of the most exhausting things we can do, especially after 70, often without even really realizing it. It's that relentless habit of comparing ourselves, either comparing to the person we used to be, or maybe even worse, comparing ourselves to people who are decades younger.
Oh, definitely.
You might catch yourself, looking in the mirror thinking, oh, my skin used to be so much smoother. Or you see someone jogging past and think, wow, I used to move like that. Little by little, These comparisons, they could just erode your self-worth and leave you feeling, well, less than.
But let me ask you, listening right now, is that comparison truly fair to yourself? Really? You aren't 40 anymore. You're not supposed to be. You embody a whole lifetime of experience, of resilience, forged through real challenges, a depth of perspective that, frankly, a younger person hasn't even begun to grasp yet.
That's such a good point.
Comparing your current self to your younger self is like comparing a majestic, deeply rooted oak tree to a little sapling. They're just in different stages. They have different strengths. One isn't better than the other. They're just not meant to be the same thing.
And the core problem with comparison, psychologically, is how it distorts perception. It's fundamentally flawed. You might look at someone younger and only see the surface, their energy, maybe their looks, but you don't see their internal struggles, their insecurities, the wisdom they might lack.
Right, you only see the highlight reel.
Exactly. And conversely, we often look back at our own past through these rose-tinted glasses, don't we? We forget that even when we were younger, we had doubts, limitations. Underneath it all, comparison often stems from a deeper fear. The fear of becoming irrelevant, maybe, or being left behind, or just not mattering anymore.
Yeah.
But true relevance, it doesn't live in youth. It blossoms from presence, from your active engagement in life right now.
I remember Thomas, 78. He'd been a competitive athlete when he was younger, really fit. For a long time, he actually avoided social events because he was just so self-conscious about how his body had changed.
That's sad, but understandable.
Yeah. But he finally pushed himself to go to a reunion. And to his complete surprise, people didn't see weakness. They saw strength. They saw a man who had lived, who had incredible stories, who showed up authentically, even with his vulnerabilities. That single moment shifted everything for him. He stopped measuring his worth in, muscle and started measuring it in meaning.
What a transformation. So if we connect this to the broader picture, letting go of comparison is really an act of profound self-acceptance. It means choosing to see your inherent value right here, right now, in the present moment.
Yeah.
Not fixating on the past or someone else's perceived advantages. It's about honoring the unique, evolving version of you that exists today, the one who's still showing up, still learning, still loving, and still profoundly living.
So what stands out to you from that? Have you caught yourself in that comparison trap? Share your thoughts, your reflections in the comments below. We really do read them. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to The Deep Dive and maybe share this with friends or family who might find it helpful. But what about those times when life starts making connection harder? This next point addresses a silent danger. Okay, we've talked a lot about internal battles, but what about when life itself just seems to make connection harder? After 70, it can be surprisingly easy to sort of accidentally slip into isolation. It's often not a conscious choice, like, I want to be alone.
Right, it creeps up.
Exactly. Life just slowly shifts. Friends might move away or sadly pass on. Family schedules get incredibly busy, and before you know it, you're spending more and more time by yourself, maybe telling yourself, oh, it's just easier this way.
But the stark truth, and this is backed by a ton of research, is that isolation is genuinely one of the most perilous habits in later life. It impacts not just your emotional well-being, but your physical health too.
Physically as well.
Oh, absolutely. Humans, we are fundamentally wired for connection. It's deep in our biology. After 70, maintaining strong social relationships isn't just nice to have, it's a vital lifeline. Study after study shows that social connection directly influences memory, mood, heart health, even how long you live. And conversely, chronic loneliness. It's been unequivocally linked to increased risks of stroke, dementia, depression. This isn't just about feeling sad. It has real, tangible biological consequences.
Wow. And the tricky part, I suppose, is that many older adults might not even fully realize they're becoming isolated.
That's a huge problem.
You might have those superficial interactions, right? A quick chat with the cashier, maybe that weekly check-in call from your kid. And those moments are good, they're valuable, but they don't necessarily replace those deeper, ongoing, emotionally nourishing connections. The ones that make you feel truly seen, understood, and valued.
Exactly. And psychologically, isolation often creates this kind of self-perpetuating feedback loop. The more alone you feel, the less motivated you often become to actually reach out. You might start worrying, oh, I'll be a burden, or you assume everyone's too busy for me.
So you wait.
You wait. And often they're waiting too, thinking the same thing. It becomes this kind of quiet standoff. And that leads to days, weeks, maybe even months without genuine back and forth conversation. And with each passing day, your world just subtly but profoundly shrinks.
There's a great story about Janet, 74, lived in a small apartment complex, used to be quite social. But after a knee injury, she just gradually stopped going to things, spent more time watching TV, eating alone, started letting calls go to voicemail.
The classic pattern.
Yeah. Then one day, her neighbor noticed she hadn't been around, knocked on her door, invited her to just a small potluck downstairs. Janet almost said no, but something inside just urged her to go. And that night, it fundamentally changed things for her. She didn't just eat and laugh, she remembered what it felt like to belong, to connect. She got inspired, started hosting these little informal coffee mornings in her building once a month. And apparently her energy, her mood, her whole vitality just dramatically improved.
That's wonderful. It shows it's reversible. So letting go of isolation, it isn't just about physically being around people. It's about courageously opening yourself up again. Open to deeper connection, open to being cared about, open to the warmth of being missed by others. And yeah, sometimes that means taking the first step, making that call, accepting that invitation, even when you don't really feel like it. You're just not meant to live in a bubble. Your stories, your presence, they matter immensely.
Finally, we arrive at a belief that often keeps us from the support we need and deserve. Okay, our final point. And this is a belief that quietly, subtly prevents so many of us from getting the very support we need and, frankly, absolutely deserve. It's that ingrained idea, often deeply held, that asking for help is somehow a sign of weakness.
The independence myth.
Right. Especially if, for decades, you've been the rock for everyone else. You know, the problem solver, the caregiver, the one everyone relied on. So the mere thought of needing help yourself, whether it's, I don't know, with groceries, figuring out some new tech, or even just needing emotional support, it can stir up real discomfort. Maybe pride, maybe even a little whisper of shame.
But here's the liberating truth, and it's so important. Asking for help isn't failure. It's actually a profound act of wisdom. Think about it. You spent a lifetime building resilience, building self-reliance. That's incredible. But true strength isn't about doing absolutely everything in isolation.
That's a good distinction.
Real strength lies in recognizing when you do need to lean on others, and then having the courage to actually do it. After all, asking for help, it isn't really about dependence. It's fundamentally about connection. It's acknowledging our shared humanity, that sometimes we all need a hand. Not because we're broken, but just because we're alive and interconnected.
But there's that fear, isn't there? That quiet, persistent fear behind the reluctance.
Oh, definitely. Many older adults really worry that asking for help will change how others see them.
Like they'll seem frail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Frail, incapable, or maybe the most painful one, like they're becoming a burden. That fear can run incredibly deep, often fueled by societal messages about aging. So instead of reaching out, they struggle silently. You know, wrestling with jars, getting baffled by tech, quietly battling loneliness, all to preserve this facade of unwavering independence.
But what often happens in reality is the complete opposite, right?
Almost always. When you genuinely open yourself up, when you ask for help, loved ones usually don't retreat, they step forward. And in that moment, something really beautiful and reciprocal happens. A bridge gets built, a bond deepens. You're not just receiving help, you're actually giving someone else the invaluable chance to feel useful, to feel trusted, to feel truly important in your life.
That's a lovely way to frame it, giving them a chance.
It is. And there's also a powerful psychological shift that happens within you when you allow yourself to receive support. It powerfully reinforces the idea that your needs matter, that you are worthy of care, attention, assistance, not based on what you can do for others, but simply because of who you are. This isn't about giving up control. It's about gracefully accepting that interdependence, not just rugged independence, is what truly strengthens us all, individuals, families, communities.
I think of Glenn, 77. Took immense pride in fixing everything around his house. Total handyman. One winter, his heating system started acting up, but instead of calling his son, who's a contractor, by the way, Glenn tried to patch it up himself.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, only made it worse. When his son finally visited and saw the mess, he said, "Dad, I wish you'd just told me. I would have been here right away." Glenn mumbled something like, "I didn't want to bother you." And his son just looked at him and said, very simply, "You're never a bother. You're my dad." And apparently that single moment completely reshaped Glenn's perspective. Asking for help didn't feel like defeat anymore. It felt like an act of love, of connection.
That's powerful. So if you've been quietly pushing through, maybe telling yourself you should be able to handle everything alone, just pause. Consider this. Perhaps asking for help isn't a sign of decline at all. Perhaps it's actually a profound sign that you trust someone, that you're willing to stay connected, that you still believe you are worth showing up for.
Wow. Okay, so let's quickly recap. We've explored 8 really powerful things to maybe consider letting go of after 70. shedding that need to please everyone, truly listening to your body's signals, those urgent ones, releasing old grudges that just steal your peace, dismantling that belief that you're too old to learn anything new, stopping the habit of saving all the joy for someday, halting those counterproductive comparisons to younger people or your younger self, actively overcoming isolation, and finally embracing the real strength found in asking for help. These are, they can be deeply rooted patterns, but you absolutely have the power to choose something different starting today.
And maybe the final thought here is this. This stage of life, it isn't about fading away, not at all. It's really about refining. It's this extraordinary opportunity to become clearer, maybe lighter, more honest with yourself and others, and ultimately more profoundly at peace than perhaps ever before. And what's truly fascinating when you look at it is that sometimes that deepest, most transformative growth, it doesn't come from what you add to your life. It comes from what you finally allow yourself the courage and the wisdom to let go of. Which of these 8 points really resonated most deeply with you today? Maybe take that as a sign. That might just be where your next phase of healing, of liberation truly begins.
Beautifully put, and we would genuinely love to hear how you plan to use these insights in your own life. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support really helps us keep creating valuable content like this. So if you enjoyed this deep dive, please do give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and maybe share it with someone who you think really needs to hear this today. Thanks so much for joining us.